my YouTube family. This is the African History Classroom, and I'm your African History professor, Professor Hicks. And welcome again to another session. Well, I'm going to start naming these as for structural and for classification for me and for you purposes. This is going to be Class 1 of the Africans in America general topic, but for those who have been following me recently, we know that the topic is the first Americans were Africans, and I will continue to show this book for those who are interested in purchasing it. There are two of these books. The first one, I think I showed you before. Forgive me. This was the first one. This gives you the documented evidence. And that image you see is one of the first people who have migrated from Africa to the bottom of South America, but not on a slave ship. All right. And that kind of leads me into what we're going to talk about. Some of what we had, like 3 or 4 topics we're going to get today. I'm going to get through them pretty quickly. So a lot of explanations and stuff I'm not going to be able to go into because I don't like having my videos go over 20 minutes. It's just not good for today's folks, present day people. You know, just like when you go to McDonald's, you want your sandwich fast. Well, unfortunately, that's the culture we're in. And to keep everyone's attention, I think I prefer to go 20 minutes. The most I will go is 30 minutes. So with that out the way, let's get it out the way, move on. So we take no more time. Again, I want to go back to those folks who have been giving me comments. I love them. I feel your love. I feel your energy. It's propelled me and it motivates me to continue on. I won't say I have not had some detractors, but detractors are important to the balance of life. You can't have sunny day. You can't have a sunny day and enjoy it unless you have a rainy day. And detractors are really good. They motivate me and I appreciate them as well and love them as well. So today I want to start off by talking about our essential question. Now this is a term I used when I was teaching college as well as high school because this question is going to carry us for the next month because I have already calculated this topic is going to carry at least a month. But that question is, the essential question is for class 1 is how can we describe and discuss the first Americans being African? So that's a great segue into a comment from one of my subscribers. And I'm not sure if he's a subscriber or viewer, but he's someone that I'm very happy to have. I mentioned his call name yesterday, and that is Black Avenger. So first, I want to address Black Avenger. I want to say thank you for being my first commentator. And as such, I would love to give you a copy of this book for free if you can somehow, or we can somehow interchange email addresses, and then I give you, or you give me your address, and I'll mail you a copy for free. Yes, that's how much I'm appreciative of my audience, and particularly my first commentator. Now, I can't continue to do that. I just have one book, all right, and I'm going to send it to you via mail if you are willing to send me some email information or your address. I don't know how to do that. Remember, I'm a novice at this. I'm an old man, technically. I hate to say that, but I am. I'm 71 years old, and I am attempting to manage and navigate this new stream stuff and YouTube without much help. Well, without no help. Originally, I did have some help, but, you know, people have other plans and people are busy. So you have to learn through necessity. As they say, necessity is what? The mother of invention. So let's go on. So the first thing I'm talking kind of to Avenger, but this is a good start or segue into my topic. And he had a question as to how Americans, African Americans, how are they associated with Africa? Now that's not his question, but I'm kind of paraphrasing it because a lot of people out there, particularly African people, African Americans, are struggling with being African. I understand that because why? I was in that same boat as well. All right. To do some of the things and achievements I have accomplished took me a lot of time, and I had suffered, and we're going to come back to this stuff, something called social amnesia. I suffered from it. But we're going to come back to that. All right. But let me go to his question because it seemed to be saying, I was trying to get the question so we can provide it to the entire audience because we all might be able to benefit from my response. So, how are the descendants on Turtle Island? How are they connected to Africa? Now, it seems to be that this young man is trying to determine, I think, in his own mind, why am I American and how am I African as well? Okay, so I'm going to do a few things, and one of that is going to require me to read, which I hate to do all the time, but it's important. So I'm going to address the most important part of his message, which was a term that he used called Turtle Island. Now, before I go on about Turtle Island, I want to preface my comments by saying that Turtle Island, its inhabitants, at the time of this term was coined or created, were people of color, African people. You will find out as we go through this journey that the northeastern coast Native Americans, who to me are indigenous and aboriginal, because they had not mixed with the Mongoloid Indian yet, that these people were African tribes. That's why you have such a furor going on across the country with black people trying to say these casinos that Native Americans have been awarded through our government. This is another theft of our identity. Because those very people who are claiming to be Native people from the Cherokee tribe, I'll just use that for an example because that's where my family comes from, are thieves. Let's be real, thieves. And they've stolen our identity along with the collaborators called the United States government. But that's a lesson for another day. So let's talk about Turtle Island. And let's talk about a couple of topics. The first one is cultural diffusion. Cultural diffusion. The next one is push-pull migration. And the next term, I want you to understand the entire family, Amarin, because when I use that term, I'm talking about African people who have mated with the Mongolian type and call themselves Native Americans. I don't use that term. For the sake of this discussion and further discussion, we're going to call them Amarin. So when you hear me say Amarin, I'm talking about mostly African people. But that genealogy and that discussion comes another time. Let's go to cultural diffusion. Cultural diffusion is the continuity of culture across time, space, and geography. So what do Africans do in Africa that they might do in America, they might do in the Philippines, as well as do in, let's say, Colorado? There is something about our culture that follows us everywhere. We can start with the very simplest thing as our clothes and our music. Our music dominates the world. Like our athleticism, it dominates the world. We are the leaders. We are the trend makers for music. We are the trend makers for clothes. Well, it gets a little deeper than that. Culture is also intelligence. Culture, as most of you know, is how you eat and what foods you like. So with that basic example, when you talk about cultural diffusion, you're talking about a group of people that do one thing in one area geographically, that does something in a different time, space, and period, and still do it today. When you talk about Turtle Island and the people that occupy Turtle Island, for example, the Ojibwe, the Lenape, these people are from Africa. They landed in America or migrated there, and we'll talk about how later on, but they are African people. They named this continent based on creation stories. Yes, Turtle Island, as you know, we're a continent, not an island, is referencing America in several different ways. It's referencing America geographically because if you ever see um, a topography view, or should I say, uh, if you look down at America on a map, in some respects, it looks like a turtle. But it goes deeper than that. It follows our cultural continuity. Turtle Island also is a creation story, similar to the Osiris, Isis, and Horus creation story, similar to the creation story of Ptah, coming out of the mold hill, or the from the waters of Nun, from the waters of Nun. This creation story is also a geographical reference. It's a philosophical reference. And it all is following our cultural continuity and what we do. For example, the people who named Turtle Island are the Lenape. Now, some of them were actually historically in New York, but they're on the northeastern coast. These people have very deep African ancestry and look African, except for those who intermarried or who mated with the Mongolian, Asian Mongolian type, and created what we call the Amarans. So with that said, I'm going to go to my notes and let me just give you some background on that. So this young man, because these are wonderful stories. Turtle Island is a term used by many indigenous peoples in North America to describe the continent, particularly as it appears in diverse creation stories, where the island is formed on the back of a giant turtle. This is us. You don't find many creation stories among European colonizers. I don't believe in my whole 40 years of studying history that I remember one. You might find them with other people of color, but creation stories are pretty much ours, all right? Or should I say began with us. Many traditions such as those of the Haudenosaunee, who are called, we know them by the Iroquois, Lenape, and Ojibwe. Now that name alone, Ojibwe, if you can't find the African context or relation to that, then we have a long way to go. These people come from the northeastern woodlands of America. It tells a story where the earth began as water, the waters of Nun, and a muskrat or other animal that dove deep to retrieve soil and create land. Now, when you hear the story of Ptah in Egypt, it talks about Ptah raising this piece of land from the waters of Nun. It's there. These are African stories. The land grew and became a continent itself, and the harmony between creatures and the environment is how this name became stuck with it. How it became Turtle Island. Now let's go back to cultural continuity again. Where else in the world do you find people who honor and embody nature and harmony and its environment? We know it's not the colonizers because the evidence is plain and simple around us. They do not respect nature. They do not respect the environment. They do not respect creatures except for putting them on TV to make commercials and the dog that they honor so much. Matter of fact, I find it a problem when I hear many, even our folks, are saying now that dog is a man's best friend. Let that sink in a while. A dog as a man's best friend? Let that sink in a while. Let's continue. It has a philosophical and cultural significance for indigenous people or Aborigine people who were there. Turtle Island is more than just a geographical term. It represents a worldview that senses respect for nature. Again, look at the evidence around you. Our weather and climate conditions are in an uproar and are opposing, are angry at the way we as humans in this planet at this time and in this location have treated it. You think these storms, tornadoes, these abrupt weather conditions are just happening? They're happening because of climate change. I'm not even going into the fact that how the climate is being destroyed, because there's some argument about whether this is a natural occurrence or whether this is one being created. The concept frames continent as a living entity, African again, deserving care and reverence, informed practices around stewardship, sustainability, and community life. Indigenous teachings about Turtle Island emphasize interconnectedness. Think about Egypt, how all the deities have either a form of an animal, and it's called forgive me, my age is creeping up, but I'll come back to it. It's the zoo life that we are connected to, and we continue to connect to it. Its contemporary use is in indigenous rights activists and education. So I'm going to stop right there. Why do we have such a large group of our folks taking on this particular topic of Africans being from Africans? Yes, we have African ancestry, but we are Americans, and the American continent is where we're from. Why do we want to do this? Why are we endeavoring in this type of thinking? Let's think about something really quick. Europeans up to 150 years ago tried to say that they were from Africa. There are Europeans in Africa right now, who we call the Dutch, but Afrikaans with two A's, who claim Africa as theirs. We are the only people that don't want to be African. So we have to study ourselves. In Egypt, one of the greatest sayings is, man, know thyself. It starts there, because by knowing yourself, you reach God. God is within you. We are all God having a human experience. So being African in this world at this time, and specifically in this country, is something it drives us to something that Dr. Amos Wilson calls social amnesia. What is social amnesia? Social amnesia is the ability to forget, and consciously and unconsciously, or wanting to forget who you are and where you came from. Why do we have social amnesia? Because, folks, it is very hard to be African in this world. No one likes us. We have no friends. We have no friends. And to be African and black is very difficult, if not almost impossible to do. Christmas is white. Things that are white are honored. Everything that's black is bad. Evil is bad. Some people don't like black licorice. Being black is hard and tough, and as such, it brings anxiety to us. And when that anxiety rears its ugly head, we want to do what we do with all anxiety: get rid of it. Get rid of it. So we consciously and unconsciously are trying to forget who we were. Why is it that we want to be African but just not from Africa? So to dispel or debunk this type of information, African history, is the reason why we are the only group collectively who don't know our history. The Irish, the Italians, the Eastern America, they know their history and they embrace it. They even want to embrace our history by saying that Kemet was white, or that they created the pyramids. But we don't want to do that. So I'm not going to go too far into this social amnesia, because that's not what we're here for. But as always, I think I bought, I did. I advise you to get this book. the falsification of African consciousness, Eurocentric history, psychiatry, and the politics of white supremacy. Yes, we are all been damaged by white supremacy. It's in our schools. I miseducated kids for 20 years as a history teacher. I closed my door, and many times my students would tell you, and I taught them the real history. But still, I had to follow a curriculum. That is miseducation. That is why I'm not upset with Trump with destroying the Department of Education, because it destroyed us for 100 years. My mother went to an all-black high school and told me wonderful stories about black teachers and what she knew. She started me on this journey. They closed those schools. We did it on ourselves by wanting to go and integrate our schools. It was the worst thing we've ever done. So the Department of Education closing down is a wonderful thing for me, because maybe this is an opportunity for us to create our own education system. There is always opportunity in chaos. This is a time for us to go forward and snatch the reins from these Eurocentric nuts and begin writing our own story in education. Because we have been miseducated. And it's hard to do. I feel for you, brothers and sisters, because I was the same way. This is ingrained in us and embedded in us. We don't want to know our history. It hurts. It's painful. It's anxiety ridden. So I get it. I was there. Let's move on. So let's get to our topic today. And thank you, brother Black Avenger. I need you to stay with me. A wonderful, wonderful starter comment. So now we're going to go to our book, and I'm going very methodically through this book. I'm not skipping anything. I'm going to go to the forward. So I'm going to give you something. This might help my brother, because it kind of relates to what we're doing, okay? Now I'm reading from the forward of our wonderful book. And here we go. Rather than begin his history of African people in America with slavery, as most teachers and everyone else does, Dr. Imhotep provides details about the first civilizations in the New World, which were created by Black and African people. So you're right with me, Black Avenger. You halfway got it, because probably when I was your age, I wouldn't be listening to this at all. I would think that, hey, I don't want to be African. It ain't good, it ain't hype, it ain't nice. But listen to what Dr. Imhotep says. He says that the New World, which was created by Black and African people, he says in parentheses, Blacks are indirectly from Africa. Yes, many of us came on slave ship, but the most of us were here. Check this out in your chats. Most Africans who were part of the slave trade did not come to America. Most of them went to Brazil. This is a fact that I will back up by evidence. I hate to give facts because they change, but look at the evidence. Go and do the research. The Africans that came to America were not very little, were not very many. So you have to ask yourself, how did we become so populous here? Because we've always been here. I will continue. We know that the Bering Passage between Asia and Africa and North America was blocked by ice 110,000 years ago up to about 12,000 years ago. Ice blocked the passage to come from Asia to America. Archaeological evidence, meaning evidence that was dug up, like when they dig your bones and we got a discovery. That's archaeology, digging into the past, physical digging into the ground. Archaeological evidence indicates that anatomically modern humans were living in South America between 30,000 and 15,000 years ago. 30,000 and 15,000 years ago. What do they mean by anatomically modern humans? We're not talking about the hominin, Australopithecus. We're talking about Homo sapiens sapien. That is where we have, with this hominin, we share the same body structure, which is called morphology, bone structure. We share the same phenotype and cranial size, meaning your brain size. These beings were anatomically modern humans who were living in South America between 30,000 and 15,000 years ago. We will learn through this book that although the Ice Age was a barrier to man's overland migration to the New World, there were many blacks here even before the ice melted. Here, let me tell you what that means. That means that during the Ice Age, Africans were here. Hint, Eskimos. Several people of African origin entered the Americas, including the San, the Anu, or the Negrito type, and the Proto-Saharan variety of blacks. Quickly, the San are the people who live in South Africa. Go type them in. You will see them with the epicanthic fold. So when people go, oh, they see an African with Chinese or epicanthic fold, they go, oh, he must have a Chinese ass. No, we gave that to the Chinese. We had the epicanthic fold, and go look up a San person and see that their eyes look like or resembles what the Chinese look like. We were here first. We gave them that physical or phenotypical feature. Then we have another group called the Anu. These, and by the way, these are all diminutive people, what they derogatorily call pygmies. I hate that term, but we have to use it for reference. The Anu are the same type of people, a little more darker skin, a little more pugnacious. Prognathism is the mouth that comes out like that, like ours. And then the Negrito. These people you find in the Philippines or in the Andaman Islands. So the San, the Anu, and Negrito people, these were the first people that walked out of Africa. And the Proto-Saharan. The Saharan people are similar. Proto-Saharan are similar to the San. Proto means original, the original. These were the first people that were hunters and gatherers. Now, before we became sedentary people, meaning before we became farmers, we were hunter-gatherers, where we hunted our prey, gathered it, collected it, and we ate it. After a time came a period called the Neolithic period. That is the period when civilization went from gathering and hunting to farming and leisure. Farming and leisure. This was started by the mother goddess, our black woman. She, instead of hunting with the hunter-gatherers, stayed home. Her role was to nurture the next generation, but also to use genius. She saw a plant, and she noticed that plant would grow every year the same place. She began to crop and harvest that plant, and she, the black woman, became the first farmers. Helping the black man, hunter-gatherers, from having to hunt and chase his food all over the world. But now we were able to create our food, store our food, and eat when we wanted to. These Anu, these Negritos, these San people were the people who started the first civilization in Kush, Nubia, and Egypt. Yes. These are the people that started that civilization before the larger, more taller, like me, I'm 6'3", came into existence. We were all miniature, what they call pygmies. They not only started the civilizations in Kush, or Kemet, or Sudan, or today Nubia, but they also were responsible for Mesopotamia. Yes, the two rivers. What you call today Iraq. All right, we're going to stop right there. All right, and put that to the side. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. Now, before we move forward, I'm trying to move at a pace that's good for us. Let's go to some notes, all right, that I made for us today. And bear with me, fans, bear with me. All right. In the same vein as what we were talking about before, it's important to understand what evidence. You see, facts don't work. I used to be a fact guy. I found out facts don't work. Because as Dr. Imhotep says in one of his lectures, that today's a fact that it wasn't raining. But that doesn't mean that fact stays that way. It could change. Truths change. What a truth was today may not be what it was yesterday, because we might find out something different. So the only way that we can find what is through evidence. And evidence will lead you to truth or your own truth. I had a comment to say something about why would that I was teaching genetics or genetics, and how would people? Well, you know what? It's going to take me too long to get to that, so I'm going to keep that. But listen to the notes, because I think it answers the question. We need evidence. We need evidence. We need evidence. You can't go and argue and say this stuff without evidence. This book is going to give us the evidence. Here it goes. Africans in America. Archaeological, linguistic, and genetic evidence supports Africans were the first in America. Now, we talked about what archaeology is, and linguistics is just language, just another term for language. Here's the archaeological evidence. The San, the Anu, and the Negrito, these anatomically humans were in South Africa, not America first. We did not land in America. We migrated through something that's called push-pull migration. Push-pull migration simply means that people migrate for two reasons. Either they are pushed to migrate or they're pulled to migrate. So let's take our Latino brothers and sisters. Many of them are in America because of pull. Because there was something in America that they could get that was not available in their country. So they came here because they had a pull, a desire to be here. Some migrants are pushed because of wars and other oppressive things that go down in the country. So they had to leave. In this instance, we're talking more about pull, because one thing that is a characteristic of African people is that we love to explore. That's one of our traits. So anatomically humans in South America, 50 to 12,000 years ago, they arrived there before the ice melted. The oldest African skeletons are found in the eastern portions of America. Evidence. Cave paintings. Herts. Hert, H-E-R-A-T-H, is where our ancestors stood around a fire and we cooked, or we made iron. One or the other. Herts. Flake pebbles. That simply means that a pebble was taken and struck on its side to make weapons or tools. Charcoal. Samples of charcoal 65,000 years ago in Americas means that we were already cooking using fire. Something that Europeans didn't even get to know of until they came out of the ice caves. 20,000 years ago, a statue of a Negro was found in Ecuador. We're going to get into the details of this, but right now, you just need to know it. Here's the linguistic evidence. King Abubakar II was the emperor of Mali. And he traveled with about 85,000 folks on a boat that they say Africans didn't do to the New World, particularly Mexico. He used a watercraft to bring culture, a watercraft. I didn't say what type, I just said a watercraft. We'll get into that later. And he brought culture and intellectual gifts here. Here's the intellectual gift he brought. The Mandi inscriptions were found in Mexico. These inscriptions have been deciphered by a great black archaeologist, just a scientist. His name is Dr. Clyde Winter. He deciphered the Mandi script using the Vai language, D-A-I, Vai. The Vai language. He was able to decipher the inscription of the Mandi people. He's got several books on this. Language spoken by the Iberian Basque. You know the Basque people who separate themselves in their own enclave in Spain don't want to be involved with Spanish culture. They have their own culture. Their language has been found to have a Niger Congo substratum. Niger Congo. Niger Congo. Niger's in the news now, like Mali is, Burkina Faso. I'm sure you've heard of that. And the great man over there doing great things. The Basque language has been connected to that through genetics. Now, here's the genetic evidence. Malian inscriptions have been deciphered by Dr. Clyde Winton. He did this through studying genetics. It's a long story, but we'll get there someday. These Malian inscriptions also found in New Mexico, yes, our country, on something called elephant slabs, depicting birds and elephants like we've always done. We've always used nature to communicate to ourselves and our people. That's where hieroglyphics comes from. Just look at hieroglyphics. This is the cultural continuity. Amerindian genes, meaning these African genes that mix with the Mongolians, are found in African females before leaving Africa. So these Africans, we don't have to prove where this gene comes from. It's called the L1, L2, L3, but don't want to get into that complicated stuff now. Mayans, and I have a couple of Mayan friends who readily say, yes, my ancestors were black. Now, they look like Latino, but they are proud of their African ancestry. Mayans inherited African chromosomes, the Y chromosome, from early African immigrants. Map and climate. Now that brings us to our last topic, map and climatic evidence. There's something called the Piri Reis map. I have it here. I'm going to try to pull it up. Hopefully I can. This is the oldest known map to man. It was created 5,000 years ago. Let me give you some information on this map. That's going to blow your mind. In attempting the and by the way, this is from the book Fingerprints of the Gods by Graham Hackett. This is a European man who studied our history and gives us credit. In attempting that explanation, it is worth reminding ourselves of the basic historical and geological facts. The Piri Reis map, the one I'm talking about, the oldest known map to man, which is a genuine document, not a hoax of any kind, was made at Constantinople in 1513. It focuses on the western coast of Africa, and the eastern coast of South America, and the northernest coast of Antarctica. The Piri Reis map could not have acquired its information in this latter region from contemporary explorers because the Antarctica remained undiscovered until 1818 our era, Common Era. Let me get a little of that. So this Piri Reis map that we know goes back beyond 4,000 years is documenting geographical topography on an area that was not discovered by the Eurocentric colonizers until 1818. More than 300 years after he drew the map. So in 1513, Piri Reis drew this map, but he claims he knows that he doesn't understand where the cartography comes from. Cartography is another name for maps. But investigation proved that this map was made 300 years before he withdrew it from another map. The ice coast of Queen Maud, M-A-U-D, land, you can look it up, shown in the map, is a colossal puzzle because the geological evidence confirms that the latest date it could have been surveyed and charted in ice-free condition is 4000 BC. What is he saying? That this map that we call the Piri Reis map could not have been created until before 4000 BC. And remember, Europeans were not on the planet yet. They didn't come down to 3000 BC from the caves. They were not on it. Everyone on the planet in 4000 BC looked like you and me, look African. It is not possible to pinpoint the earliest date that such a task could have been accomplished, but it seems that the Queen Maud land may have remained in a stable, unglaciated condition for at least 9,000 years before the spreading ice cap swallowed it up entirely. So before 9,000 years, let's go back 8,000. Let's cheat. We're gonna go forget the 4. Let's go 8,000 years. This map did not have ice on it, or this geographical area. There is no civilization known to history that had the capacity or the need, not just the capacity or the need, to survey the coastline in this relevant period between 13,000 BC and 4,000 BC. In other words, the true enigma of this 1513 map is not so much its inclusion of a continent not discovered until 1818, but its portrayal of part of the coastline of that continent under ice-free conditions, which came to an end 6,000 years ago. Okay, I'm going to try to bring this map up to you so that you could see it. This is the Piri Reis map. Now, if you're looking at this map, on your left is the map that was drawn by Piri Reis. He was a Turkish commander in the Turkish Navy when he found this map. Now, it's hard to see what's going on here, but I'm going to use the other map right next to it, which is the same map, except it's without all the land and topography included. Now, with my pointer, I'm going to show you this part of the map. This is Africa. And if you get a map, you can see here, Africa. If you look at this map good, you see elephants drawn on it and such. In between this is the water, the Atlantic Ocean. This here, folks, is South America. South America. Now, I want you to use your brain, your thinking cap, and think, how in the world would someone be able to chart this map, 9,000 BC, without an airplane, or without visiting, or without exploring, or without inhabiting this area? Most maps are made through inhabitation. Look at this good. This is the Piri Reis map. A map of hidden places. In the middle is the water and certain islands. On the right is Africa. On the left is the eastern part of South America. This is the western part of Africa. Folks, how? How? Well, ladies and gents, without further ado, I'm going to give you this last piece, and I'm already 43 minutes in. I didn't mean to be this long, but it's important, so I'm going to end it quickly as I can. I'm going to give you some homework, because I don't want you to take my word for it. I don't want you to take Dr. David Imhotep's word for it. Let us now look at some very extremely ancient sunken cities. Now, here's briefly what happened. During about 12,000 years ago, 12,000 BC, there was a climatic catastrophe. The world flooded. We're not going to get into why now. This is where you get even the Genesis creation story about the water. You no matter where you travel on the earth, India, China, Africa, there is a creation story using water. As you saw what I read for Turtle Island. These stories started in Africa and Egypt. But I want you to go look at a demonstration or evidence of how we populated everywhere. Most of you already know that we built those pyramids. And every pyramid you see, the ones in Mexico, we built, but the Aztecs and many other groups, Mayans, built over them and added to them. But those are all ours. And you're going to look and see. This is going to prove or give you evidence that we were all over the place. Now, you have to listen carefully because I'm not writing this down. These are the underwater cities that you can look up. I'm going to say each one twice so you can come back to this. You need to know. I want you to go to Port Royal, Jamaica. Port Royal, Jamaica. Yanaguni-Jima, the Step Japan Pyramid. Yanaguni-Jima and the Step Japan Pyramid. Dawaka, Gulf of Cambay. Dawaka, Gulf of Cambay. Lion City of Quandio, Lake China. Lion City of Quandio, Lake China. And Cleopatra's Palace in Alexandria, Egypt. Underwater pyramids around the world. There are two next to the Province Island of Bahamas called the Bimini, B-I-M-I-N-I, Bimini Islands. Look up Bimini Island Pyramids. The Azores, A-Z-O-R-E-F, of Portugal Pyramids in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Pyramid City, 3.5 miles off the southwestern coast of Cuba. As I mentioned, the Bimini between the Andros Islands and the Berry Islands. Please come back to this video to get this again. Which is approximately 100 miles from Bimini, near the tongue of the ocean between Bimini and the Andros. Pyramids in the ocean of Cozumel, Mexico. Cozumel, Mexico. Underwater Chinese pyramids 40 miles southwest of Xi'an. Constructed during the Haitian Dynasty, year 2005 or 2205. You can just Google China's pyramids and you're going to see all of these underwater pyramids that look just like, for those who believe that Africans created those pyramids, because those who don't, you might have cognitive dissonance with this stuff. You will see these pyramids. So with that, folks, I'm going to sign off. I'm well over my limit. I'm up to almost 50 minutes, but this was required. I will promise you that the next few we're going to keep under 25, but this is the opening. This is class 1. Do your homework. Go look at these pyramids. They're going to tell you such things that like, oh, these were natural formations. Look at the Antarctic. Type in pyramids in the Antarctic. Some fool during the presentation of this pyramid tried to say that this was created by the ice. But I know my family is much more astute than that. Pyramid of Antarctica. Look what our people did in the ice and before the ice got there. There were 4 ice ages and there were 3 interstitial ages. Look up those times. And with that, folks, I'm going to sign off and hope to see you again. Please don't forget to subscribe, share, comment. I love it all. And I'm going to say to my family, Ashe,